everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I will be your astrologer today. This is going to be the astro weather for August 7th through the 14th, 2022, but the major headline would be, holy cow, full moon in Aquarius. Guys, this is I would say awaited kind of period astrologically in all of 2022. This is definitely the major plot twist that I've been talking about, and where situations become very real very quickly. Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you guys where this is taking place for each and every one of the 12 signs. I am also going to be pulling tarot cards and giving you some insight as to how to handle this full moon in Aquarius. Do me a favor, if you're new to my channel, say hello, drop a line, give me a comment. Let us know where you're viewing from. Give me a thumbs up, and do please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel so you're getting content as it's coming out. We've seen so much growth, guys. We've seen the channel triple in size over the last year. It's really amazing just to see this community develop. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody who is either a member or a subscriber. Remember, sharing is caring. Getting this out there helps other people deal with what's going on with the cosmos, and we'll get them this astro weather report. So I hope you guys are doing well. So if you've made it this far, you have made it through the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction. Major rocks and rattles and rolls have been taking place since the end of July. As this is coming out on Sunday the 7th, we are actually experiencing Mars square Saturn. Now, if you missed it, I did a whole video on this, really focusing on that, because I really wanted to differentiate the difference between the Mars square Saturn and also the full moon and all of the other things, because we kind of have to break it down. Just look at it like this. All the astrology that's been taking place really since the end of July is almost like a domino effect. And one event is going to create a chain reaction that's then going to affect other things really for the rest of the month. Now, to some extent, when we're dealing with the full moon, we're dealing with both energy that's been building really since this new moon that we had in Aries a few weeks ago. What am I saying? New moon in Aries. Hello. The new moon that we had in Leo. My mind was on Jupiter and Aries. So we had a new moon that was in Leo in trine to Jupiter. Super positive, very optimistic. And now we're building into the completion of that lunar cycle, coming into the full moon. So this is going to be that polar opposite kind of point. And it's energy is basically in an apex. We're seeing everything rise and become a little bit more intense. When we have a full moon, it's going to be more emotional. We're going to see lots of challenges to this full moon, unfortunately. And it's actually wrapping up a bigger story that has been playing out really since about the end of February going into March of 2022. I'm going to put a pin in that because I want to go day by day. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about just how some of these energies are setting up all the way up until the full moon. But full moons we have once a month. This happens to be in the sign of Aquarius. So if you have any placements around, I would say 18 to 20 degrees of Aquarius or any of the fixed signs, you are going to be the most affected by this. And yeah, I'll put a pin in this because I want to come back to that in a second. So I want to show you guys how this is going to build. So basically, you know, on the 7th, it really kind of starts off with the Mars square Saturn. So as you're watching this on Sunday morning, here's your warning if you haven't already been aware, some rather challenging energy with Mars square Saturn. Mars is foot on the gas pedal, right? It just wants to go. It's linear, it's direct, it's about passion and courage. But Mars in Taurus is how we're eating, how we're spending, our values, our resources, our comfort zone. So we're moving towards, or there's this emphasis on materialism, what we're bringing in, what we're obtaining, right? And what we have for security. Saturn is like throwing on the emergency brake, or, you know, or I guess putting your foot on the brake. But I really see this more as a jolt that's coming from Saturn throwing on the brakes. So it's trying to alleviate Mars, the North Node, Uranus, kind of having that rise. Now it could be about spending, it could be inflation. It can also be about trying to kind of limit people getting angry and upset about resources and anything in relation to like gas. I could see it being connected to natural resources, to energy, to heat, anything of that regard. Now, just since we had the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction that's been taking place since the end of July, beginning of August, you know, it does create friction. It creates tension. We start to see lots of tension. And what's different between the Saturn square Uranus and the Saturn square Mars is Saturn square Uranus can bend and it can be flexible. Uranus shows us where we're leaning into something, and then Saturn has us pull back. What I'm concerned about with the Mars square Saturn is that for some of us, if we are putting the pedal to the metal, if we are pushing too hard, we could break things, we could sever, like actual break, you know, through stuff, or we can have like high impact cutting injuries, things like that. I'm gonna tell everybody that we wanna slow our roll on Sunday and Monday, and as we're coming out of some of the Mars square Saturn. But even then, the full moon is gonna show us, you know, building into a sun opposed Saturn. So all week, we're going to be feeling time restrictions, time constraints, feeling crunched for time, not having enough time to get things done. I think it's interesting just in the news this week, hearing about how supposedly the Earth is rotating faster, which is actually making time go by much more quickly. And the way that we're experiencing time, very, Uranus and Taurus, like the physical experience of what's going on with time changing in the future, with the squares to Saturn and how that can have quite a significant impact, apparently, from what I'm reading on everybody. So it's not funny, but it is quite literal with the astrology. I've also looked at this as like timelines are speeding up. So there is something that is speeding up with Mars North Node, Uranus in this conjunction, but Saturn is kind of lassoing that in and saying, hold on, we have to have regulation. We have to go through, you know, all of the checkpoints. We need to make sure that everything is safe and secure and stable. And Saturn's not doing that intentionally to like crash the party. He's doing it to make sure that if we are going to have this sudden growth or this sudden development, that it's going to be something that is sustainable. So, you know, watch my Mars square Saturn video. It's going to kind of explain this a little bit more, but just know that we're going to be feeling the crunch time more so as a result of this. And we can get angry, we can get nasty, we can get mean. There can definitely be a sense of being like tit for tat and wanting to give or issue people ultimatums if they do not do what we tell them to do. And unlike the Saturn square Uranus, the Mars in Saturn square will bend until it snaps. So people might snap, they might go, that's it, you know? And usually when we see like this square, there, at least for me, something I've been thinking about a lot is like, where am I doing something that I'm doing because it's like rigid and it's routine and it's just something I have to keep doing, versus something that I'm working on that I'm willing to take the time and practice more of like a, kind of like looking at it as like a devotional work, right? And not being like, okay, it has to be rigid and hard and this and that. It's just consistent and timely and doing it on time and showing up on time, because that's my way of kind of being of service, because I'm personally trying to work away from this whole, okay, it has to be done this way, kind of like rigid routine stuff, you know? So a lot of it's going to be about how we look at that. And if we are really getting in alignment, some of our motivations and making sure that even though we're not seeing instant gratification, we're practicing being appreciative of what we do have, very glasses half full, looking for the silver linings type of stuff. So we're not getting discouraged and getting short with people because we're not, like I said, getting that immediate gratification, because I think that that's really what the Mars North Node Uranus wants. So you're going to see that square setting up today on the 7th of August. It's really been in motion pretty much the last couple of days. We're going to feel it really all the way through the full moon, I believe, because we're going to see more oppositions to Saturn and squares to Uranus. Now, the same day, we also have the moon in Sag, and it is forming a trine to the sun in Leo. So I'm not mad at that. I feel like when the sun and the moon are in positive aspect to each other, we've also got a trine that's setting up to Chiron. So we're seeing some fire trines taking place on the 7th. At the very least, it's going to be active. It's going to be feisty. It's going to be fiery. I'm also watching Venus come into a trine with Neptune in Pisces. So Venus in Cancer, very homey, very romantic, very maternal. And that trine to Neptune, I feel like, can in a way be maybe diffusing a lot of the tension that's going on this day. And it's a way of talking about what life could be, or daydreaming, or being dreamy, or kind of romantic. So that's the more kind of positive side of how things are going to be playing out with that. Now we go a day further and we look at August 8th, and then Venus comes into her opposition with Pluto. Well, Venus being the ruler of the North Node, which is about harmony and social status and relationships and money. And it's in the Cancer mansion. So it's going to be more about reminiscing, being stuck in the past maybe, things that relate to real estate, property, our domestic home life. And that challenging aspect she will be making with an opposition to Pluto. And Pluto happens to be at 26 degrees. So this is a Taurus energy, okay? So it deals with money, resources. Pluto in Capricorn is going to be dealing with government. So I think we're going to be possibly experiencing some things that make some people feel threatened in regards to their home life or their resources or anything of that nature. The moon's in Capricorn this day. I guess the silver lining is that as the day continues, we are going to see that the moon will come into a trine with the North Node, and it will also be forming trines with Mercury in Virgo. And as the moon goes further into Capricorn, it'll really fully trine the North Node, Uranus, and Mars. And so I think that that's a decent day on tap with some of those trines, because it's just like, okay, what do we have to do? We're doing emotional labor. We're doing a lot of emotional acrobatics, I think, with the moon in Capricorn. And we're also going to see going into the 9th, then, that the moon is coming into contact with Pluto. So it's going to start making a conjunction with Pluto. Hades moon, guys, so there's some intense emotional breakdown, working through things when it's in a Saturn sign. It feels very rigid and kind of stuck. But I'm liking the fact that we are seeing these trines to Uranus and Mars in the North Node. So we're like, okay, if you don't like it, if it doesn't feel good, do something about it, right? So do something about it. That's the advice that I would give you guys on the 9th as we're seeing that happening. And let's see. So then we've got feeling the emotional shift. The sun is coming into a square with the nodes this day as well, which I think is kind of important because we're seeing a whole slew of planets square the nodes. When a planet squares the nodes, we take into consideration what that planet represents and also the sign. So the nodes deal with the moon, right? We've talked about this being kind of like megaphones for just making things really loud and kind of cranking up the volume. So as the sun goes through Leo, the sign that it rules, we focus on what the heart wants, what children wants, what we want in terms of romance, self-expression, creativity. Leo is the stage where we put on the show, right? Aquarius is the audience. So I think we're going to be seeing this real emphasis in what can I create? What can I do? Even in the midst of some difficult or challenging times. And where we really need to shine a light on that and acknowledge that. Now it's happening at 17, 18 degrees. So 17 relating to Virgo, 17 relating to Leo, and then it's going to actually come into the square at 18 degrees. So noticing a pattern here, guys, Mars, North Node, Uranus, 18 degrees. I said previously in my other videos that we're going to start hearing things ramping up about issues with the service industry, issues with conflict. We're going to start seeing problems with hospitals, that there's going to be some new possible, virus or something that's going to break out because of the sextiles that we're having to Neptune. And Taurus, can deal with the physicality of the body. It's ruled by Venus, so it can also deal with appearances, but Taurus rules the neck, things relating to the throat, the vocal cords. But I think with Mars being there, it's going to be about people talking about how it could affect their appearance. I think you guys get where I'm going with this. And as we see the sun come into square with Uranus, it's going to be like an anything goes day. So we don't really know what happens that day. We've got kind of really larger than life performances and egos and desires that are coming up, which is going to be in conflict with Uranus and Taurus, which is going to be our personal values. So these are all in financial signs too. So I'll get to that in a second. But when the sun squares the nodes, I guess the real question is what are we putting in here? Like, what are we bringing in to be able to become more aware of our own personal talents? That's really what my question would be. Some people are going to put on a show. There's going to be fireworks whenever we see planets going through Leo and squaring the nodes, that's for sure. It's going to put a spotlight on the youth, creativity, celebrities, performers, artists, you know, anything of that nature. And then on the 10th, we're going to have the Sun in Leo fully come into the square here. So first it was actually squaring the North Node at 18 degrees. The North Node shifts to 17. The Sun goes to 18. The Sun squares Uranus. Oh boy. And this is one of those full moons that you guys are going to be feeling it definitely 3 days before, maybe even 3 days after. I mean, I'm filming this on the 4th of August and I'm like, if this is how things feel now, what's it going to be like in a week? I guess personally, I can't imagine that looking at this. And then we move into the 10th where we're in preparation for this full moon in Aquarius that's coming in. Now, like I said, you've got the Sun square that 18 degrees of Taurus, right? So it's squaring where we had that conjunction point. So it's going to be bringing up, okay, this is the breakthrough that we had, the realization that we had. So how do I go and tend to that? What talent do I develop, right? Where do I invest? Where do I focus on my goals and what's actually going to make me happy? Which I think is a question everybody should be asking themselves right now. What can I be doing that's going to make me feel the most creative, the most authentic, in spite of the fact that it seems like the world's on fire? And maybe we've become accustomed the last 2 years of like not celebrating things or being cautious before sharing good news or telling people something that we're hoping to achieve or working on. Like Leo just comes out with it. So I think what we're going to see is like, as a result of this full moon where we're having to make big changes in the way that we're actually spending our pleasure time, what we're enjoying doing, even if we're feeling like things that are going out in the world are kind of heavy, it's how do we carve a little bit of time out in our daily routine to develop something that is going to be valuable in terms of like a trade or maybe a talent or a hobby. So that way we're kind of feeling like we're getting a little bit of relief from the intensity out in the world. But that 18 degrees of Taurus is the kaboom point. So when planets square it or when planets oppose it or when we see other activations happening there, you're going to feel something coming back up from whatever was brewing at the end of July. Which brings us to the full moon in Aquarius, which is going to be at 19 degrees. Trying to keep this in Aries rising, but yeah, it'll be at 19 degrees of Aquarius and change. So let's talk about that really quick and get into that so I can give you the notes here. So the full moon is going to be taking place on August 11th, 2022 at 6:35 p.m. Pacific time, 9:35 p.m. Eastern time. I know we've got people all over the world. Check your time zones accordingly, but honestly, you're going to know it's coming. You're going to feel it with some of the squares. So you're not even probably going to need to see a report to know that there's something going on in the cosmos. This is a super moon, meaning it is a moon, and there's been a series of them this year that is closer to the Earth. So we're going to feel the impacts of it a lot more than usual. 19 degrees relates to Libra, relationships, balance, fairness, equality, anything in relating to partnerships, right? Or possibly even law or legislation. So that's something else that might be coming up as well. Aquarius is a fixed air sign, so it is ruled traditionally by Saturn, right? The Lord of Karma, but modern day astrologers use Uranus, which has to do with rebellion, innovation, freedom, liberation, anything that's about, going against the grain and kind of freeing yourself. So therefore, we're going to take really a look at both Saturn and Uranus in this lunation chart. I want to see what they're both doing. Obviously, in my opinion, this is already a full moon in Aquarius that is being hosted by that moon in Aquarius as well. We've got the moon within a couple of degrees of Saturn. So 19 degrees, it's about 3 degrees off where we're going to have Saturn. So Saturn is basically hosting this moon. So he's singing loud and strong. He's very loud during this moon. But also that 19 degrees is in a hard angle to Uranus, and Uranus is the traditional or the modern day ruler of Aquarius. So I think that that's kind of interesting that we're seeing the return of this square. Guys, if you think back to 2021, we had 3 Saturn-Uranus squares where we were being asked if we wanted to continue on the story that we always have, or if we wanted to break free from that and completely start over new, what actual limits or rules or regulations or goals did we want to carry into the future, and where do we need to start something completely different and just kind of blaze new trails. So we're still going back and forth with that. At the end of September and going into October, the Saturn-Uranus squares return, and it's not going to be exact, but it's going to be 18 degrees. So you guys are going to feel it. And it's definitely going to be pretty wild when we start seeing the eclipses that are coming in Taurus and Scorpio again. So I think a lot of people are going to be quite surprised. And my husband's always saying, like, you guys are always saying, if you think this is crazy, watch for the next one. But in many ways, I believe that August through November of 2022 is like the grand finale of all of the crazy shit that has happened in the world since 2020. And I know that you guys may not believe me. It might sound a little extreme. We might start to realize what's really been going on behind the scenes throughout the last several years of having Saturn in Aquarius. What's actually being built, like what is going on behind the scenes, who is running the world, is it reptilians? I don't know. But something along the lines of maybe shadow governments, right? Pluto is behind Saturn. Maybe it's that there is this move from the elite or from globalists or big tech to be able to kind of move in and have more control. Are they colluding with certain world governments? I don't know, but these are the themes just looking at the astrology. So I'm trying not to go on like a crazy Aquarian bender, but there's something here in the stars that are kind of suggesting a lot of these things are very possible. So during this moon, we are going to be focusing both on Saturn and also Uranus. And what's different between, like I said, the bending of the Saturn-Uranus square and the Mars square is that Mars is actually saying, we got to cut some things loose. We got to let some stuff go. So just up until this full moon, we're actually going to see breakdowns that are happening or needing to cut off relationships or cutting people off financially. There's going to be something going on that can really stimulate that Mars-Uranus conjunction, where suddenly people start getting really reactionary. They're getting angry. They want to take possession of something, possession of their land, possession of their money. I've said this time and time again. We are going to see further limitations coming over the next couple of months. And it is very smart for people to either have resources, have a little bit of money, have a little extra food on hand, just in the off chance that these squares do materialize as people hoarding and going to the stores and grabbing things up, right? Because we have seen that in the past when we had other squares. Now, themes for this, because we are seeing an activation of the grand fixed cross that's happening during the full moon, but we will see it continue actually really up until the time that the sun comes out of an opposition with Saturn. So that's why I think that this full moon is going to be life-changing. I really think it's going to be super karmic. It's going to show us where we are in terms of the alignment of like really sticking to some of our goals. And depending on how this shakes out for some people, we're going to get a grade. We're going to get a test grade from the universe to see if we're passing or failing. And those of us who have a lot of resistance or we have a lot of challenges with this full moon, I think it's saying like you're unwilling to give up, right? So I referenced in my Saturn video with the Mars square Saturn that if Saturn gets too restrictive, Mars is going to get like really pushy and like out of control, and it's going to push harder. And if Mars is not being patient, if he's impatient and if he's rushing through things and kind of like crashing into things, Saturn is going to be like, you're out of here. So when we're dealing with the square, we need to find a way to be able to harmonize the two energies. And we're actually actively working on building the life that we want to create, but we need structure. We need a plan. We need timing. It's not something we can just rush through. So if we're rushing through things, we can find that there's bending and then breaking. So when this full moon starts to pick up, we're going to see this grand fixed cross that's happening. And this is when we have planets that are in all of the fixed signs, and they're all going to be squaring by about 3 degrees. So it's from about 17 to 21, 22, I guess 5 degrees, but it's enough to feel it. You'll feel the square. And it's like grinding of the gears, basically. Now, when we have planets square the nodes, it means we have to, really work on the energy of that planet. So we talked about the sun, how the sun is about our conscious awareness, what makes us happy, our own pride. But the moon squaring its own nodes, and the moon being in a Saturn sign and in a conjunction to Saturn, is telling me that there is going to be a set of karmic repercussions that are coming with this full moon, that there are decisions, that there are, for some people, going to be final decisions and almost like there's no turning back. For other people, it's going to be realizations that there needs to be separation, that there needs to actually be something that is severed, broken down, changed to be able to get to where we need to go. So, fixed squares produce tension. It pushes our lives forward. It pushes the wheel of the chart. And it's got grit. So it gives everybody a little bit of grit when they go through this. Whenever I see like a square in a chart, regardless of if it's, fixed, cardinal, or mutable, I always look at this and go, okay, they can do a little bit of everything. And one puts pressure on the other to be able to kind of get life moving forward. So yes, these are difficult aspects, but this is really showing where fate is stepping in. This is also showing us where there is a free will aspect. I always believe in free will. I always tell my clients, that you guys should too. And I see the free will being more so the sun in Leo, which is, are you choosing to participate in this? Do you want to give life to this? Do you want to live a life of fun and happiness? Like, are you choosing happiness? Because happiness really is a choice, right? It really starts with those choices. The opposition to the moon and Saturn square the nodes is saying that there are going to be things that are going to happen to help get you on the path to getting to where you need to go. It may seem like heavy emotional lifting, right? So when we see the squares that are happening in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, also these are financial signs. Taurus deals with the money and the possessions we have. Leo deals with speculative stuff like gambling and markets and investments. Scorpio deals with taxes, money that we owe, other people's resources. And Aquarius deals with larger groups. And it can also deal with financial goals and things that can pay off. So likely we're going to see that because the sun is where the market is and it's squaring and making these oppositions and squares to both Taurus and Saturn, Saturn is in a superior position to Mars. So you got a lot of people who are going to want to rush in and they're going to want to get their money, or they're going to want to spend money, or they're going to want to buy something. And Saturn's going to say, no, we're limiting this. We're only allowing so much of it to be sold. We're only allowing so much of this to be bought. You can only withdraw so much. So likely there's new information coming about buying and lending, taxes, and our actual spending power, which is going to challenge a lot of individuals. Especially, I've talked a lot about Leo being about self-employment, and that a lot of people are looking at what they're doing for a living, wondering like, what am I getting out of this? I'm building something for someone else. I'm not getting benefits. I don't have healthcare. Like, am I delaying my own happiness by going and working for other people when I should be investing that energy in myself? I believe a lot of people are going to have this kind of thought kind of going on over the next month. But it can also be, well, what is my government doing for me? What are they doing for my children? What are they doing for my life, for my existence? Why am I paying taxes? I think a lot of people are going to start asking about what's going on with budgeting and what's going on with spending, and how much is going out versus what's actually coming into the countries that we're living in, and if we're feeling supported, right? So look for Saturn to be coming under the guise of like politicians, big business, tech, and I'm expecting some real challenges to finances, but more so in October. So I think that we might see, some big turns of events. I think Mars coming into a trine with Pluto very likely could be like, okay, things are getting easier, but this is what we have to do to get there. So the narrative is going to be spun however it's going to be spun, to remind people that some of these limitations and setbacks that are coming are to better help us get back on track. But make no mistake, fall of 2022 and also the spring of next year, it is definitely going to be some pretty chaotic things that are going to be going on in the markets. I'm not a financial advisor, but I gotta tell you, I've been pretty bang on. If you guys go back and if you look at my Pluto return video, if you guys go and look at my Venus retrograde video, and I talked about what ultimately was gonna happen throughout this year, a lot of these things have actually come together. Now, traditionally in astrology, when the moon is in a conjunction to Saturn, it adds like this heaviness. There's like a seriousness to our emotions. It can also make us feel like we're having distance in some of our intimate relationships. And so I think this being in a 19, that's very likely to happen. It can be with our closest friends, Aquarius, our closest loved ones, Leo, feeling separation to some extent from our family, our children. But I think we're going to see lots of relationship problems with this square. I don't like saying that, but that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting when this moon sets up. And we're going to also be seeing that we're dealing with some negative attitudes, right? Moon Saturn can be kind of heavy, pessimistic, more serious. Aquarius needs that distance, and it's also very intellectual and it rationalizes things. So I could see people going, well, yeah, they had to, you know, kick up interest rates, but that's what we have to do to keep from X, Y, and Z happening, you know? Or, you know, yeah, we had to take a break, but, you know, that's what we have to do sometimes. So you're going to hear a lot of people who are going to be kind of disconnected emotionally. And then with the squares happening with Mars, people are still agitated. They're frustrated. They can be a little bit more impatient or a little bit more mean than usual. And if we're dealing with some of these negative attitudes, you know, we're going to kind of get the impression it's going to feel a little bit worse than it is. It's going to be highlighted because it's a full moon. And these limitations that are coming because the moon deals with women, family, property, real estate, we can assume that that's kind of where this is going to be hitting us across the board. Now, when we see moon square the nodes, that's more an indication that in the past, at least in a natal chart, we were too individualistic, right? We're not always taking into consideration what other people need, what other people want. So the moon coming into that square, squaring the nodes, is like, well, we're not considering other people. And the sun in Leo is like, screw other people. What about my happiness? So I'm anticipating that there is going to be some blanket thing that comes out in the weeks ahead. Really, you have to give this until the end of August to fully unfold, where we're hearing that there's going to be limitations, or we're hearing that there is going to be censorship, or that there is going to be rationing, or there is going to be some kind of overreach, but it's what we have to do. And a lot of people are going to be like, what the hell? Like, why do I have to do this? Like, why is this affecting me? And with the sun square the nodes, it's like a lot of like people really just having to honestly accept and love and be who they are. And I think that that's so difficult right now because there's a lot of like, oh, don't want to piss the neighbors off. Like, what if they think we're weird? Or like, don't want to talk about this in front of so-and-so because they're going to get offended and they're not going to take it the right way. I mean, we've come to a point in society where it's like people are so afraid to speak their truth and say what they really think, and they're afraid to piss other people off or be cast aside, that they're dimming their light. Sun square in Leo to the nodes is not dimming your light. It's not giving a fuck. It's basically being like, this is the way that it is. And it's challenging when we have this Mars North Node Uranus stuff going on, because a lot of people just want chaos, right? They're looking for a fight. They're just perusing parking lots, just waiting for somebody to get into it with them. But that would be taking the easy way out, right? It's like looking for the conflict as a way to have that outlet rather than just coming out with it and being like, hey, I don't like this, and this is what I think. So I'm not giving you guys the green light to be a jerk. I'm telling you it's very easy to be a jerk and to feel a little bit more, I guess, in alignment with speaking your truth while being confrontational. And that's not really it. I think it's more about being able to shine your light and not letting other people dim that, being able to state your case without being confrontational, not always feeling like you need to subscribe to the hive mind and what everybody else is doing, what the mainstream is doing, what the mainstream is saying. I'm not telling you guys to be, you know, rebellious or go against the grain, but I'm just telling you, listen to what your heart is telling you. If you're like, this is bullshit, then speak up, then say something. Because a lot of these transits are showing us that we have to get up off of our ass physically and quite literally, emotionally, energetically, financially, to make our dreams come true. Saturn and Aquarius. Nobody's going to give it to us. It's not going to be handed to us. We're gonna have to fight to get there, but hopefully we're fighting for a good common cause. So that sun will highlight personal desires and needs when it comes into friction with Saturn. It's because we're all upgrading. You know, you guys have all seen that, you know, that the little like, please hold, updating, right? We're all updating, we're all upgrading, we're all getting to the next level in what's going on energetically in the cosmos. We're all going through energetic uploads as well, and we're starting to kind of realize like, oh my gosh, I'm more sensitive to this or that, and where maybe you put up with it in past years or months, we're not doing it anymore. I think a lot of people also, something I've heard a lot from clients is like, I don't identify with who I was 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago. A lot of us are changing, and we're rapidly progressing and kind of starting to realize that in order for us to live the life that we want, there has to be something that changes with our values, and also how we're consuming and what we're spending our money on and what we want. So if you want out of the rat race, stop participating in some of the stuff that's going on, and like free yourself and realize that you have the ability to create change. You can start over at any point this week. If we wait for some of these energies to hit, it's going to hit us like a ton of bricks, and it is going to bring about some friction with other people, and it's going to be much more difficult to get through. Watch, like I said, for overreach, limitation, censorship, big brother watching, spying. I kind of get that vibe also with the Saturn moon in the squares to Mars in the North Node. You got to get serious about your dreams, even if you have to let a few people go along the way, right? Leo teaches us that we sit there and we put on the performance. The audience is Aquarius. So now we're going to see individuals be able to stand up and like actually release a song or put out a movie or put out a TV show or release a book or a dance, like something that has the ability to really show everybody, the masses, Aquarius, where we're all limited, that we're following the herd, we're following other sheep, we're not actually listening to our own inner knowing, our own inner king, I guess we should say, being Leo. Mars also to me is like the hammer, okay? So those of you guys who have seen, like I'm a big fan, I love sculpture. Anybody who can sculpt or they can chisel or they can make something, to me it's like very impressive. I have Mars sextile Saturn in my chart, that's probably why. And I think of Saturn as being like the block, right? This is the piece of granite. This is this giant piece of cement. And Mars having come into square with Saturn is creating that friction where if we hit too hard, like I said, the whole thing can shatter, like it can break. But if we use the precision of Saturn and we use the dedication and the drive of Mars and we're tapping it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, we can actually create something to a full form, and it can be sustainable and it can last for a long time and it can be beautiful and it can be solid and all of those great things that come with Saturn. So I really feel like Mars is helping chisel away and create Saturn's dream, right? Saturn gets a bad rap for like, you know, being the jerk who cancels the party too early or, you know, is the teacher who's like really hard on us. But I actually think that Saturn here is trying to get us to focus on our future dreams. So if you're looking at your chart, look at Aquarius, look where it is in your astrology chart. Know that there's pressure coming from Mars to produce, to act, to do something. But a lot of us benefit not pushing it too much, just noticing where there's resistance. It's kind of like when you're dealing with, you know, a muscle that's really tight and you've overextended it and you're trying to push it too much and the muscle can kind of spaz up. You don't want to do that. You want to kind of stretch, you want to lean into it, you want to start gradually adding more weights to your fitness routine so you're not blowing out your muscle and you're not having a tear. For a lot of people, I think it's just learning that something solid and something worth working for is going to take time. And it's kind of hard when we're in a world right now of instant gratification where we can immediately buy something, have food delivered to our house, we can just immediately make a transfer. And for a lot of people, I don't think that we're going to realize what we have until we lose it or until we lose the opportunity to use that. So you want to watch out with that with some of these squares between Mars and Saturn as well. And like I said, it also teaches us that we have to get up and kind of seize the day, seize the moment. We have to get off of our asses. We have to get out of bed. We have to go and make things happen. And, you know, the Mars-Saturn square, it's got some grit to it. So I could also see where, you know, sometimes a little friction is good. Sometimes it's a matter of being like, hey, are we going to get going with this? You know, are we doing this? What are we doing? Granted, we want to be more so thinking about timing, right? Because Saturn is timing. So we can't build something in a day with Mars and Taurus. There's a long and steady and consistent process. So we're seeing that growth. I'm looking forward to, you know, Mars going into Gemini, even in spite of the retrograde, because Mars is going to be making trines to Saturn, and we're going to start to see things kind of stabilize a little bit. So if you're kind of feeling really anxious and you want to push the envelope this week, or you're trying to push yourself at the gym, or you're just trying to push yourself through work even though you're sick, not the week to do it. Frankly, it's not going to be the week to do it. And it's going to be, you know, looking at it, this is something that came up for me in meditation. It was, are we going to be party crashers or party planners? So I could see how Saturn is the party crasher, right? Saturn in Aquarius. It's like, and Mars in the square. We got to fight for our right to party. But if partying is what we want to do, if we want to celebrate at the end of the week some big accomplishment, or we want to throw this big bash for some, you know, successful situation that we've had in our life, or a wedding, or a party, or an engagement, whatever, are we going to rush through it and potentially shut it down too soon and not be able to enjoy it and savor it? And are we going to have a lot of chaos in the process of trying to put that together? Or do we want to be party planners and work with the energy of Saturn and be planning for what's coming in the future, knowing that it may not come immediately, but if we're taking the solid steps necessary right now to build that foundation, it's gonna be a better planned party. Right? Everybody's been to a party that's been thrown together versus like a party that's taken a year to kind of plan. If you've planned a wedding, a birthday, an anniversary, anything like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's gonna be less scrambling and arguing with relatives about who's blowing up balloons and whether or not somebody forgot to get, you know, the catering, and like now everybody's eating Subway and the party sucks. Like we don't want to have anything like that. We want to be focused more on being party planners. And I think the one thing that Saturn in Aquarius has taught me is that good things are worth working for, and it's not going to be handed to you. It's not going to happen overnight. But there are certain situations with Saturn in Aquarius this season, through Leo season, that we're going to realize there are some people who help us build our dreams, some networks, some associations, some social platforms. There are people out there who are here to help us and who have our back. But Sun coming into the opposition with Saturn is also teaching us that not everybody gets to go along for the ride, that there are friends that may not be conducive to us having healthy habits or living a healthy life. We may spend too much time on Facebook. We may spend way too much time focusing on what other people think, or comparing yourself to other people, or feeling like we have to kind of be stuck in this doom and gloom, oh my God, oh, always me, the world's a shitty place mentality, because that's how other people are looking at it. If you don't like it, then it's important to remind yourself and other people, that's not my reality. That's not what I'm creating. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to create. I'm here to express myself. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to experience joy. And I don't think a lot of people are trying to actively do that. And obviously it can be difficult just with what's been going on in the world, but it's been designed that way to feel like we're, you know, lab rats that are trapped in a maze, right? But the beauty of this moon is it's basically saying you're going to see through the sorting and the sifting. And for some, full moons are oppositions, right? It's pulling apart, breaking apart the pieces, separating from people, if that's what we need to do, separating from our old goals, separating from our old friendships, because something in us is saying it's time to move into this now. This is where we want to go. Extreme weather, forest fires, we've seen that happening, you know, throughout the last couple of weeks. The Mars-Uranus really picked that up. We're going to see more storms coming. I also think part of that's Jupiter retrograde. I've heard about volcanic warnings in Iceland. I mean, this is all the Mars-Uranus stuff expected. Remember, Mars can also be confrontation, conflict, things that go boom. So a lot of stuff is building up before we even get to this full moon, okay? Aspects would include the sun, obviously, and the moon in opposition. So we always see during a full moon, the moon is in opposition to the sun. So it is peaking all of that energy. We've also got the sun in Leo, like I said, that's in a square. It's in an opposition to Saturn. And both Saturn and the moon square the nodes, Mars and Uranus. We've got the sun trine Chiron opening up for healing and allowing us to heal the heart space and the inner child. We've got the sun and moon, like I said, square the north node, Uranus and Mars, reactivating those trigger points from late July. We've still got north node conjunct Uranus. We're going to have that for a little while. That's going to be taking place really for some time, a couple more weeks, especially because Uranus is getting ready to retrograde pretty soon. And we've got Mars in Taurus with a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. So One thing about this, and I said this in the Saturn square Mars video, the Mars square Saturn video, is that Mars is reactivating the eclipse points that we had in the fall. So if you think back to, I think it was November 19th, 2021, we had an eclipse in Taurus. It was a lunar eclipse in Taurus, so it was exalted because the moon was there. And then we just recently in May had a lunar eclipse in Scorpio where the sun was in opposition to this. So Mars coming back to 26 degrees, conjunct Algol, right? One of the more challenging stars that we have in the skies, which does deal with anger, violence. It can deal with decapitation. It can deal with suicide, losing our head, anything in terms of like possession. The list goes on. There are other connections to this in mythology, but for the most part, this is a really difficult star. I believe it's going to reactivate these 2 points from those eclipses. And being that it's conjunct the one in November in opposition to the one in May, and then the sun is squaring it, it's bringing all of those themes of the Taurus Scorpio eclipses back to light, which is about my money versus other people's money, my resources, their resources, my spending power, my lending. So I think we're definitely going to hear a lot more about the markets for sure. I'm liking Venus just has moved into Leo, and we're going to start to see Venus coming into some trines with Jupiter. So that's going to be, I think, a little bit nicer than some of the placements that we've been seeing throughout this week. And that's pretty much it. So now let me skip over to talking to you guys about the 12th. So you're going to feel the full moon fall out, like I said, for the rest of the week. So on the 12th, we see Mars and Taurus start coming into the trine with Pluto and Capricorn. That's like, okay, shit happened. What are we planning towards? You know, how can we be able to focus on getting everything in alignment, especially financially or with spending, in relation to feeling like we have more control. So that's going to be kind of ramping up a little bit. That's a really powerful square because Mars and Pluto are both quite action-packed planets, both associated with the South Node in Scorpio and also both associated with Scorpio. So there is something there that makes me feel like there is really a lot of power coming in to aid something. I'm wondering if it's going to be like the government's pumping money into something because they're like, okay, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z to kind of alleviate some of the pressure. Then we're going to see also on the 12th. Yeah, that's pretty much it on the 12th. So let's go to the 13th. So then on the 13th, we're going to see the sun come into opposition with Saturn at a 21. So that I think is like that, okay, this happened, boom, there's the separation. So it might be about 2-3 days after the August, 11th period where we see this kind of finally come together. Even after that full moon at 19 degrees, hours later, you see the moon conjunct Saturn, and then it's going to square Mars and like all kinds of stuff. So it's already in the air, basically. But sun opposed Saturn, feeling like our energy, our vitality is blocked. It's thwarted in some way. We can see issues also with like solar figures and issues relating to bosses, father figures, things like that. Saturn can be these like older, more respectable people in society. Sun is vitality, so there is like a loss of vitality or a loss of control maybe, and also things relating to heat. I think with Mars coming into these late degrees, we're going to see more heat issues, which can also be impacting people, especially in terms of like hard stuff. We've heard a lot of this stuff recently. That is a day to watch because I do see that materializing as like a separation, but for like moral reasons, right? For like being like, yeah, I can't do business with you anymore because I don't like the way you're doing business. And I feel like we're not on the same wavelength. And I think integrity is going to be a big thing throughout the midst of some of these squares, and a lot of people are going to start realizing that integrity is so important and that you can't have allegiances with certain people just because of financial reasons. And there's a need to break free from that. On this same day, we see that Mercury is in opposition to the moon in Pisces. So the moon is conjunct Neptune. Moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces is nice and it's dreamy, but I'm not wild about the quincunx to the sun, so it makes me feel like there's a sense of like not taking responsibility or not connecting. And whenever we see the moon in opposition to Mercury or Mercury in opposition to Neptune, it's like, I'm not thinking clearly. I don't know where my emotions are. I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know how I feel. So we may not be ready to communicate yet. In spite of that, we still start seeing Mercury coming into the trine with the North Node and Uranus in the days to follow. But that Sun opposed Saturn, I think, is definitely like, okay, we've separated, I need some space. And Mercury in opposition to the moon and Neptune makes me feel like it's like, I need some alone time, I need some space. So we might need more time to kind of reflect on whatever has come about during that time. We start to see then on the 14th, so this is taking us into next Sunday, the moon goes into Aries. It's in conjunction with Jupiter later in the evening, and it's in a trine to Venus in Leo. So more positive, optimistic moods, perhaps, feeling a little bit more up, a little bit more excited, a little bit more positive or optimistic. Moon Jupiter can be better feelings with a trine to Venus. It's like, you know, it's like, okay, I'm having a tough day, but I'm going to find something productive to do with my energy. So I'm not sitting here and I'm not like, you know, in just like a sad little puddle, right? Still feeling that energy also of the sun in opposition to Saturn. It's going to take a day or two for that to wear off. And we're seeing that now Mercury is building into a trine with the North Node, and then into next week it'll trine Uranus and Mars, and also it starts coming into a trine with Pluto. So rational thinking, right? I'm looking forward to Virgo season. I've thought for some time that this is going to be like when the adults enter the room and we start listening to facts and actual data and scientists and doctors, and we're able to be like, what the hell is this? Or a lot of people having more factual conversations and being able to share information, and starting to kind of question like, okay, you know, if this is the problem that's at hand, because Mercury in Virgo, it's a problem solver. With the trines to Pluto and the North Node and Uranus and Mars, I think we're going to start to kind of see like, this is the reality of the situation. So that Mercury retrograde in Virgo is going to be like, what do we do? You know, how do we fix this? Where do we go from here? And it'll be nice to see, you know, kind of that go through Virgo. And during that retrograde that we're going to have in, I don't know, it's end of mid-September, I think, and to watch that get worked out, because it'll make several aspects to Pluto. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself. That's the astrology for the week. It's a wild one. A lot of people, I think, would really benefit by just being mindful of whatever is shaking out around the full moon is kind of like a meant to be situation. And if it does lead to separations, if it does lead to taking space, if it does lead to deleting friends and stuff like that on social media platforms, realize that the emphasis is Leo. So it's on the individual. So it's like, what makes you happy? You know, the world might be on fire around you, but really focus on what makes you happy, what's bringing you joy, even in spite of other people who are running around like a chicken with their head cut off and possibly trying to get you down. Now, I'd like to read you guys the Sabian symbol for this full moon. So it's at 19 degrees and change. So we're going to read 20. This is my Sabian symbols book. I love to read this. It gives me a little bit more insight. And I like to read it after I have my lecture, just so I can be like, okay, that makes sense. So it's page 354, and it is Aquarius 20. A big white dove, a message bearer. The word is conviction. The theme is the hidden messages in all things. The symbol speaks to the higher wisdom and inspiration. The image of a big white dove, a message bearer, always speaks to the symbolic or hidden messages and things that will always be found by those that have faith that they will be there. The dove is a symbol of peace, hope, divinity, and spiritual guidance. The emphasis is on the degree in keeping a positive attitude and learning to trust the intuitive perceptions. At its highest, it represents sensitivity and discernment, or a special gift for knowing the right time to act and the right time to do things. Watch out for a holier-than-thou attitude or a tendency to know it all who refuses to admit error, even to the self. The accent is on certainty. The emphasis today is recognizing a higher power than yourself. You may receive a message that eases your mind or reassures you. Your greatest advantage lies in listening to the ears of your heart. Keep a positive outlook and pay attention to what's going on around you. The information or answer you may need comes from an unexpected source. Faith, assurance, divine favor, help, Holy Spirit, guidance, enlightenment, wisdom. Well, that's good news. I keep telling people, I'm like, you got to take the wins when you can. I did look at 19, which I kind of, okay, I want to share it. So well, you can look at either one. I have always learned to round up because we want to look at the whole degree that it's going to relate to. But we are going to see the sun at 18 square Uranus, and we're also going to see it square the nodes. And Saturn's going to retrograde back to square that degree. This is Aquarius 19. A forest fire quenched. The keyword is concern. The theme is rising to the occasion. The symbol speaks to the successful resolution of an emergency or crisis and to the satisfaction in a job well done. The image of a forest fire quenched symbolizes suppression or quelling of dangerous, destructive force. The emphasis in this degree is the opportunity in every group experience for discovering personal skills and ability previously unrecognized, on turning an everyday ordeal into a productive adventure of social responsibility. On a practical level, the symbol alludes to diffusing explosive situations, calming tempers, and bringing potentially volatile, dangerous situations into control. At its highest, the symbol represents the ability to function efficiently under pressure, watch for lack of enthusiasm, a tendency to avoid getting involved in anything out of the ordinary. The accent is on getting things under control. An emergency can be resolved, much to everyone's relief. Guard against being a coward or telling yourself that you're ill-equipped or not capable of dealing with the issues at hand. Yeah, don't make a habit of depending on others to get you out of a situation that you created. So we've both got like this, like rising to the occasion, getting it done, like stepping up, you know, and like there can be things that can feel like crisis that are pushing us into this now. But then as we kind of go closer to the 20 degrees, it's kind of saying like there's a secret meaning to everything, and that like we have to have faith. And if we have faith and inspiration, you know, we know that if we're paying attention to the universe's messages, and these little, you know, sprinkles of information and guidance, that very likely we are going to have the ability to really pay attention to our intuition and trust our intuition in making decisions. So we are avoiding certain catastrophes. So look for that, right? I always think about that. It reminds me like of the movie Sliding Doors. Have you guys seen that? Where it's like what life would have been like if you had gone left rather than going right, and like all the string theory concepts, and just seeing how her life played out very differently, whether or not she made or missed the train. There may be things that happen over the next couple days or even around this full moon that is super dramatic, but it was actually averting a crisis from happening or from something getting worse down the road. And I've seen this in clients, you know, throughout this last month. I mean, having clients that are getting ready to get married and then suddenly finding out that their partner of 5 years is having an affair, you know, or, you know, people who find out that they get a diagnosis and they've got a cancer scare and it's something they need to treat, but they found it sooner rather than later, right? So confronting some of these issues in our life right now and like really facing them head on and dealing with them in a way where we're knowing that it's a part of the better and the greater good for whatever's coming in our life. So we're possibly dealing with them sooner before, you know, it has a snowball effect and it turns into like this really chaotic, really destructive thing down the road. Maybe it's just me, whether it is a cheating spouse or it is a difficult diagnosis or anything like that. Like these are things we want to know sooner rather than later. We don't want to keep putting off looking into it or being so focused on crisis prevention that we're not actually having the experience that we're meant to have here. I have a book recommendation for you guys. This is a book that I have been reading over the last, I think I got it like in the fall, so it's been about 8 or 9 months. I added it to my Amazon book list, so if you're ever interested in what I'm reading or if you see me using books or tarot decks on my channel, you can check out the links below in the description. There is an Amazon link that has all of the books that I talk about. This has been really helpful for me. It's by Howard Sespordas. It's called The Gods of Change, Pain, Crisis, and the Transits of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I've loved reading this book, big time. Part of it's because I have really strong Uranus, Neptune, Pluto contacts in my natal chart, so I'm used to kind of dealing with the conjunctions of those energies. But I have, in the midst of these transits, I've had Uranus going in opposition to my Sun and my Mercury, so I'm communicating differently, I'm thinking differently. Things are coming very quickly. Sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And I also have Saturn that's on my North Node right now that's squaring. So I'm getting my ass kicked. And this has been really helpful. Just reading about the Uranus opposition and learning more about what Pluto or Saturn transits might do and like how they affect us. And it takes it through the signs and the houses for each individual planet. Really great. I really love this. So if you're going through some of these transits, I would recommend this. Just to kind of help give you guys a little bit more, insight into what's happening. I am going to be talking about which house the full moon is taking place in for each and every one of the 12 signs. I'm going to be working with the Neo Rider Tarot Collection again. I like this deck. And I'm going to pull a card for each and every one of the 12 signs and tell you guys what I'm seeing. So if you want to listen, you can listen. By now, you guys should know I'm a Western astrologer, so I practice Western or tropical astrology. This is going to be for the whole sign house method. So to make the most of my readings, you are going to want to listen to your rising sign, because that's physically where this is going to be taking place in your life. You can listen to your sun. It will have an impact on you. It'll have an impact on your goals, your career, and what you're doing on a personal level, what you're hoping to achieve. You can listen to your your moon sign if you want to learn more about how it's affecting you emotionally. Let's not slack on the moon signs, guys, because the moon is what we need for emotional security. This is a moon that's going to square the nodes, so there is something to this as well. You can listen to your progress chart if that's what you want also. If you don't know how to find this information, you just want to find a birth chart calculator online. Many of them are free. You just put in your birthday, your time, your city, and your location. And make sure you have the exact time. You're going to cast your chart and you can take a look at which house Aquarius is. If that's too difficult, if that doesn't make sense, check out my links below. I'd love to see you as a new client. I offer one-on-one live Zoom readings. I'm not going to record a report and send it to you. They're going to be live. I have full hours and half hours available, especially if you have any placements between, like, let's say 18 and 25 degrees of the fixed signs. You guys are all kind of getting hit with these energies this year. I'd love to talk to you. All right, so let's start with Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? How you doing? How's it going? You got a full moon happening in your natal 11th house. So a lot of what I've been saying really pertains to you because I'm making general views based off of 0 degrees Aries rising. For you, Aries, the one thing that I would say is that you've got a lot of action going on here with this full moon. Let's bring it back a couple days. There we go. That's going to be about your goals, right? And it's a full moon. The moon rules your natal 4th house. What are your goals? How do you want to feel? Where do you want to be living, right? And you're seeing all of these big energies that have been activating in your 2nd house where you want more spending power. You're also seeing all of these squares happening with eclipses to your South Node in your 8th house, which is about breaking free of karmic entanglement with other people. There's been a lot more independence in your finances and your resources. With a full moon in your 11th, you are becoming acutely aware of some of your goals, right? Some of your goals, some of your dreams. There can be big things going on with friendships. There can be big things going on with networks. So that's something else that I would take into consideration. And when you have a full moon here, sometimes it can be make or break situations with certain friends. Now, this is an unusual moon because usually it's pretty positive, but the fact that it's going to be conjunct Saturn, square the planets in the 2nd, square the South Node in the 8th, and in opposition to the sun, I want you to focus purely on what makes you happy, what you can be doing or participating or playing with or whatever that's going to kind of appease you and take your mind a little bit off of some of the stress that's going on with some of your friendships. You might be feeling really heavy effects of like needing to be more focused on either your hobbies, your children, something like that. And it does create a little bit of strife or a little bit of conflict with groups and group endeavors. So it can be a little bit harder to go and socialize with some of that stuff. This is also very financial for you because it is hitting financial parts of your chart. So I would also say just be really mindful, anything in regards to sharing, lending, advice, anything like that with other people. The card that I got for you is the Magician. Wow. Creating your own reality, as above, so below. So this is the act of doing, right? It's like, I am making this happen. This is my goal. My goal is coming to fruition. And I would just say it's about not pushing it. It's about still focusing on the visualization, the manifestation, I think that you're learning that you can physically have things, but it doesn't always necessarily bring you happiness. And sometimes the happiness is more so about being able to complete the project or complete something or launching something, and the fulfillment that you get from being able to, like, you know, create that and put it out into the world, whatever it is. It's a book, if it's a business, if it's a kid, anything like that, rather than the act of like the physical stuff that comes from it. So you're learning to kind of shift your values a little bit, and values are going to be more about obtaining your dreams and making your dreams a reality, rather than anything in regards to just focusing on finances and resources. Everything is at your, it's like at your feet, it's at your hands, right? The magician has all of these different elements at the table. So he has the ability to make anything happen. It's right in front of him. He just has to learn how to mix all of these elements together and bring it into fruition. Okay, so we've got, let me move this along. Taurus and Taurus rising. Welcome, Taurus. Hope you're doing well. We've got a full moon taking place in your natal 10th house, which is all about career. So if you see here, this is setting up here in your 10th house of career and responsibility. It is hosted by Saturn, which does traditionally rule your career, but it also rules your beliefs and your philosophy. And it is in a harsh square to planets that are in your first house, where you're feeling particularly anxious, rambunctious, needing a little bit more freedom. And when you see a full moon in Aquarius, there are big things that happen in regards to your career. So like publishing, decisions, teaching, like these things can happen, travel, but it's all coming into opposition with the sun that is in your 4th house, which is like your family, your kids, your responsibility. And it's kind of trying to allow you to have your moment in the sun. So this can be like when you complete a job, you end up getting hired for something. There's like a big release of something that's really important relating to your career, because the moon is in the 10th, but it's very stressed out because of the oppositions in the 4th and the squares to your 1st house. So there's something going on here where it's like, yes, you've got all this stuff happening at work, but you're like, I can't pick the kids up from school. I don't have the time. I can't be there. You're going to have to like let the plumber in, like handle the dog. I'm at work. These are going to be things that are going to happen, and you're going to be kind of wound a little bit tightly over the next couple of days after this moon, because you're being pulled in all different angles. You know, the sun is domineering. So it is a father figure or a parent, or it is somebody in the home, or there is some kind of action with children going on there that's bringing your attention back to the 4th house. And you're going to be like, I'm just trying to get work done. How can I deal with this? And it does make you a little anxious. It does make you a little rambunctious. But for the most part, I have to tell you, Taurus, this is something you've been working really hard, really since about the end of February going into March. I want everybody to think back. During that time, we had, you know, Venus, Mars, Saturn, all conjuncting. So there was something fusing together that end of February going into March period in 2022 that was setting the stage for what we're committing to. So we had a new moon also that was at the end of January, beginning of February 2022. This is that 6-month cycle after that. So you've been working really hard to get something to a point where it's getting visibility, right? And it is bringing your attention away from yourself. It is bringing your attention away from your family. Try not to be grouchy. That's the best advice I can give you. And this is trying to teach you, like all the fixed signs, to find more balance in your life. But yes, there is a huge emphasis on what you need and what you want. Relationships can fall off from that. And there's this huge drive to go full steam ahead with your career. And to me, it looks like you're going to get it, but it does come with a sacrifice. It does come with not always being with your family, not always being able to enjoy your downtime at home. The card that I get is the 2 of Cups, which is fascinating to me, Taurus, because South Node's in Scorpio. So those of you guys who are partnered, you're letting people go, or you're having more space from relationships if you're a Taurus rising. If you are single, there can be soulmates and people coming into your life, but this is saying that you want to let people help you. Other people can come in and help you. If you're like feeling like you're fit to be tied and you're up to your ears with work and you're also needing your own personal vacation time, and then family comes in, be kind to people. You know, be open to other people trying to help you and trying to assist you, because it looks like there's going to be the gift of that, of people saying, you know, how can I partner with you? How can I help? Relationship energy comes from this. So maybe it's also realizing that, you know, the world is a crazy place. And if you do happen to have a lot of strife at work, you know, you come home and you spend time with your family, And there can be things that happen that make you realize like how much you appreciate them and how much you need their support. Okay. Good luck with that, Taurus. I know it's difficult. I know. Gemini rising. We have got this full moon that is happening in a sister sign of Aquarius, and it's happening right up here in your 9th house. Now, this is going to be dealing with your belief system, your philosophy, travel, education, legal stuff, publishing, anything in regards to friendships, maybe at a distance, right? So you've got the moon in conjunction with Saturn, and the moon deals with stability, resources, funding, and also Saturn, which is other people's resources. So a full moon in the 9th, it does bring a conclusion. There can be legal conclusions. There can be education or travel conclusions. But I'm seeing that conjunction as being like, do I want to spend the money to move? You know, do we have the money? Is there some kind of legal documents that are going down? You know, am I finding out if I got into the college or the university? Did I get accepted into the program? You know, is my book ready to be published? That kind of stuff comes with a 9th house full moon. The fact that it's in some really harsh angles to this, you know, kind of gangbusters of planets in Taurus and the South Node in the 6th, this is happening in mutable houses. It's fixed signs, but mutable houses, which means something's changing about the way that you relate information or what you believe in. The 9th to 12th house squares, I see that as being like a crisis of faith. Like, what do I believe in? Like, have what I believed in forever? Is it real? What's actually going on out in the world? You might be having a crisis of faith as a result of some kind of challenging energies that are going on globally. And it's like getting you to think about, how can I get involved and help other people? How can I make a difference? How can I share my story? That kind of stuff. Being that it is happening in a sister sign, I think is positive, because if you've got Gemini rising or Gemini placements, you're going to receive trines from this full moon, which is free-flowing energies, which can be really helpful. And that's that, you know, 120 degrees. I get the 4 of Cups. Kind of building off what I was saying earlier, like this is being focused on what you do have rather than getting stuck or feeling victim to what you don't have. Like very glass is half full. And that's going to be really important. I mean, it is happening in the areas of your chart, the 3rd house sun transit with Saturn in the 9th, where you can be feeling like, what is life? Why am I here? You know, lots of like philosophical questions and things that you're asking yourself, and like trying to really make sense of like what the purpose is. And I think that you're going to be feeling inclined to like want to commit to a new way of feeling that's going to make you feel a little bit more stable and a little bit more secure. So when the 4 of Cups comes up, it's like we're kind of like, we're swimming in those emotions. It's hard for us to see the forest through the trees. We're getting kind of frustrated, but what we don't see is that Ace of Cups that's being offered to us in the background, which is saying new opportunities for love, to fall in love with something new. If you are falling out of an old belief system, if you are kind of leaving something that you have always believed in or studied behind for something new, there is room. It requires a little bit of like openness and being a little bit more sensitive, you know? All right, so now we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. This is going to be a full moon in Aquarius that's happening for you, Cancer. This is taking place in your 8th house. So we've got the Moon Saturn conjunction here. You're ruled by the moon, so you know when there's new moons and there's full moons, you feel that very strongly. You get in your emotions, you feel those new cycles and those older cycles kind of filtering through. We've got your chart ruler, the moon, in conjunction to Saturn, ruler of the 7th house. So 8th house full moon is highlighting other people. What other people didn't give us emotionally, sexually, energetically, financially? What are we owed? That's the question. And what do we owe other people? Do we owe other people money, right? Because we see this in the axis of the 2nd house and the 8th house. Do you have to give something back, give an object back? Is there a sense of you reevaluating, you know, whether or not you're feeling let down by relationships that didn't work, didn't pan out? This can be romantic or this can be professional because it's involving Saturn. Now, as these two planets oppose each other, they're also going to be squaring all of this energy in the 11th house, where you've got friends rooting you on saying, do better, pick yourself up, move on, you know, focus on spending time with people who are going to be creating more positive incentive in your life to get more so back on your feet, physically, emotionally, what have you. These can be like friends and people who are artists and creatives. But the full moon in general makes me feel like there can be some strife here that's coming from friendships, especially if there's been some issues or miscommunications over having worked together and money. So borrowing and lending things can be coming up for you as well. A full moon in the 8th is kind of like ripping off the bandage, especially with Saturn being there. It's like having to acknowledge the harsh truth that you're letting someone or something go. Like that's really what's going to happen. Now, the moon can be mother or maternal figures. So it can be like someone you used to live with. It can be family. It can be objects belonging to your home. It can be you have something in your house and somebody goes, I want it back. It can also be like this feeling of like needing some kind of space, perhaps, and somebody is not giving you that space, or you're feeling like they're kind of invading your private life. So a full moon here is going to also highlight money owed, taxes, needing to pay something back, loans, banking. The fact that it's going to conjunct Saturn and oppose the sun can also say that there's issues revolving around lending, because you're having to qualify or you're having to show proof that you're working or that you're making enough to be able to get that. So there can be issues with like, you know, being able to qualify for loans, honestly. So that's something I would just take into consideration. If you owe money also, this is going to be a time where this is really going to come up quite strongly. The card that I get is the 8 of Coins. So the good news is that you're working hard, you're productive. That makes sense with the Venus and the Sun going through your second house. It's been relatively strong with the trines to Jupiter, and you're really trying to come out on top, even in spite of some more difficult emotional situations that have been happening, or you've been feeling a lot of turmoil recently. 8 of Coins is working hard and perfecting something. So you're throwing yourself into something that requires a lot of labor or a lot of like hard work and details and like really finessing something and bringing it together. But it's going to be valuable. So it can be this sense of like, I'm working on it, money's coming in, I'm maybe paying things, it's fine, like I'm working hard, I'm getting everything, you know, kind of set up. So you've had a really strong period that I think that you've been producing, or you've been setting things up to make that possible. Venus also coming into a trine with your Jupiter is really great, because there's a lot of support that's going to be coming from family or from your home base to be able to make it possible for you to expand your career. Somehow work and like where you're living seems to be kind of like merged in some way. Okay. Good job, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. Oh my gosh, I've heard from so many Leos in the last week, and I'm just like sitting around just like, you know, like the meme where Kermit's just drinking the tea? Like that's how I feel, because I keep hearing people like Leo's telling me like, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this. I can't take any more of this. And I'm like, just wait until mid-month. Like, you know, like you haven't seen anything yet. You've got this full moon that's taking place in Aquarius. It's in your 7th house, and this is going to be relationship showdown, okay? If it's not relationship, it's friendship, because it's Aquarius. So you've got a full moon in your 7th house, similar also to Taurus and Scorpio and Aquarius. Action-packed if you're one of the fixed signs, because it's happening in an angular house, so you're going to see sparks fly. Leo, probably one of the more challenging Leo risings, you know, placements that are going to be kind of going through this. You've got a full moon in your 7th, which is highlighting other people and other relationships. Hosted by Saturn. Saturn is the lord of the 6th. So relationships with coworkers, relationships with pets, relationship breakdown, scheduling and issues with relationships, problems with partners over work and work schedules. Then you've got the opposition to the sun, which is your chart lord. So you're very affected by full moons because you feel the intensity that's building because planets oppose your chart ruler. These two planets, Moon and Saturn, square off with Mars and Uranus. And it tells me that you're totally radically changing the relationship that you have with other people or your family, and you're like upending the past. You're like, this isn't going to control me anymore. You're not going to tell me what to do. I'm the boss now. You got the North Node in your 10th, so you're really focusing on your career and kind of building that. So to me, it seems like with the sun opposition during the full moon, there is this realization that you need to be apart from some people in order to feel like you have more control in your life, or you need to not work with some people or not be friends with some people or have some space and not be on top of somebody that you're in a relationship with because you feel like you have work to get done, and that there is this feeling of like wanting other people to kind of meet you halfway and be at your level. And some people may not be able to do that, to be honest with you. That's the feeling that I'm getting. So maybe you've been dealing with partners who don't have jobs, or they're lazy, or they're not focusing on goals, and you're like, I'm full steam ahead, I can't be with this person. So there can be breakups that happen with full moons in the 7th. It's conjunct Saturn and also in a square to Mars. So it's also things like, I don't know if we're working towards building the same future. We don't want the same things out of life. We're not looking to live in the same place, or we're not looking for the same thing in terms of what we want to kind of create in our personal life. So that could be it. And watch for issues with family as well. I know that this sounds like very doom and gloom, but like, you got to clear this stuff out, Leo, especially the days to follow. I think it will materialize as like realizing that there really is no going back for certain relationships, especially if it doesn't allow you to feel like you're in control, or that you're in the driver's seat of your own life. Looks like you're going to come out on top, baby. I mean, Ace of Coins is like, my mind's on my money, my money's on my mind. You can go through a full moon being in a relationship in your 7th house. You have it every year, and you can maintain the relationship. But I think there's lots of conflict in relationships that's going on because of what somebody is producing. You know, are you the breadwinner? Are you sick of doing that? Are you, picking up the tab for everybody and not feeling like somebody is as generous with you, or they're not giving back into the relationship? This tells me you want something solid you can hold on to, which is very Saturn, right? Saturn conjunct the moon. But you may also be realizing in the midst of these transits that just having somebody doesn't mean you're solid, right? Just being in the relationship doesn't give you security. You might have thought it does for some time, but maybe you're realizing that it actually can send you into a spiral in other ways in your life. So hold on to what you can. Likely there's going to be something positive that comes from this. So if you have to have a difficult talk with them about commitment, or stepping up, or getting a job, or resources, or being able to support you, it's going to go well, but you're going to have to stand your ground. Okay. And there's new opportunities, both professionally, but also in terms of finances, that's going to come from really speaking your piece. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. This is going to be a full moon that's taking place in Aquarius, and it will be happening in your natal 6th house. So the 6th house deals with your daily routine, pets, coworkers, right? But it's in the sign of Aquarius. So it's like your future health goals, your future schedules, and things in regards to setbacks, delays. A full moon in Aquarius in your 6th can bring about a healing crisis, a health crisis, a cold, flu, things like that. The ruler of this is also relating to Uranus. So I'm wondering, like, is there hangups at work that inhibits your ability to travel? Do you get sick and, you can't get somebody to cover your shifts, so there's some kind of change in what's going on with you actually being able to go somewhere? This can also deal with like court cases, litigation, settlements, especially if you have been waiting on some kind of decision to be made about education and whether or not something is going to be paid back, or if something's going to be forgiven. Settlements and settling settlements can come here as well. This is going to be happening at 19 degrees though. So I have a feeling it's like, what relationships are and are not positive for you? What is healthy? What isn't healthy? What needs to change about your diet, your health, your fitness, or even how you see the world? And do you need a schedule adjustment, a change adjustment? Are you moving from one office to another? Are you hiring staff? Are you finally starting to see the results of like several months of really focusing on working on your health? Any of these things can be coming up for you. I think that because it's highlighting your 12th and your 6th house axis as well, it can be things that are kind of getting cleared up in terms of romantic relationship confusion, and where you've been making time for other people who maybe haven't been making the time for you, especially if you've been traveling and needing to adjust your schedule to go and visit them. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting looking at this. Now, the moon rules your 11th house of friendships, so this can also be some friendship breakdown, or, kind of feeling a bit in the dark because there is something that's not working out or aligning in terms of scheduling with another person. Also, Saturn being the ruler of your 5th house, I feel like this is about making more time for pleasure projects, making more time for dating and hanging out with your friends. And those of you guys who have children, it's going to be about finding ways to get more support for your kids, because Saturn rules your 5th house. So some of you guys need babysitters, or you need housekeepers, or people to pick the kids up after school. And like there's some adjustment that needs to be made to your schedule because of either your love life or a kiddo. The card that I get is the 8 of Swords. So it tells me you're stressed out. You're like, how do I make this possible? I don't know how I'm going to handle this. Like this is a setback or a schedule change that's really stressful, maybe dealing with anxiety and feeling like you're just kind of like locked into a situation you can't get out of. This card teaches you that transformation comes after you're changing and transforming the way that you think about a situation, that you can set yourself free. But if you're constantly, you know, mulling over something over and over and over and you're not giving yourself a break, then quite frankly, yeah, you're going to get stuck in that place. So some of you guys feel like you're never going to break out of, you know, working in an office job, or you're never going to break out of, you know, certain health issues or ailments. But it's really important to pay attention to your mental state and what you're thinking, what you're telling yourself you can or cannot change. We do not want to manifest a healing crisis that's going to push us to go and make some of these changes, right? Because that can happen when we start to see some of these squares that are taking place in a full moon also in your 6th house. Mind over matter, Virgo. It's going to help you get out of this situation. We have now got Libra and Libra rising. I might have to roll this back just a little bit because we're going to get into the moon going into Pisces, and I don't want to confuse you guys. So let me bring this back here. There we go. All right. So Libra and Libra rising. You're going to be having, well, the moon will go into Aquarius. Don't worry, it's going to be a full moon in Aquarius. So you're going to be having a full moon in Aquarius. It'll be on August 11th, 2022. That full moon is going to be taking place. That's going to drive me crazy. Hold on. Can you see my sun Mercury coming out in this? I want to see that moon in Aquarius just for the people who are seeing it, because I know some of you guys have an issue seeing it. Okay. So you're going to have a full moon that's going to be in Aquarius. It's going to be taking place in your 5th house, Libra. It is going to be happening in a fellow sister sign because it is an air sign. So if you're a Libra sun or a Libra rising or a Libra moon, you're going to have trines, which are going to be to this full moon in Aquarius. Now, the full moon will be at 19 degrees and change. Now, for you specifically, we've got the full moon happening in the 5th house. So it's the area of the 5th house, which is lovers, romance, if you're self-employed, your own creative projects, things that you've been launching. If you have children, it's about children. Libra rising, this can be some really big breakthroughs that you're having in regards to good things coming from you really focusing on your heart's desire. So if you've been working on passion projects, on hobbies, if there's been stuff you've been trying to kind of bring together really since the end of January into March of 2022, this is kind of coming full circle. I mean, a full moon in your 5th house is interesting because it's, in many ways, you have to do both. This is a chart of balance. You have the sun in the 11th house highlighting friendships and your goals. But then we see the moon come into an opposition. Now the moon rules your 10th house of career or parenting responsibilities. With that coming into conjunction with Saturn, which is your home base, and it's going to oppose the sun. You're feeling like there's friendship clearing out. You're letting some friends go because you're coming into like a much more kind of self-preservation period, or you're focusing on your own personal inner harmony and your home life and stability or security. And that's going to come into some issues where there are some separations with some friends or some goals that are relating to a group, right? Saturn in your 5th house is going to keep having you focus on your own creativity and what you're working on in your own happiness. Now, the challenge here is that there's a lot of bang up planets in the 8th during this full moon that are squaring this. And so for your sign, really, I think it's going to be like Libra and also Aries. Like, you guys are the ones that really need to focus on what makes you happy and where happiness can include other people and some things you need to do for yourself. Libra, it's more actually going to be about where you're making the shift a little bit to consider other people, because we have the sun that's in the 11th. So other friends need you. Other friends might want to collaborate with you. It might be a time to socialize. By the same token, these squares that are happening to the nodes and also Mars, Uranus in the 8th house, to me, it seems like you need more fun. I think you're going to be having more fun closer to the end of August, honestly, and you might be having a little bit more time for just having a good time and kind of kicking back and enjoying yourself. But you're starting to really feel the effects of just working a lot and hoping that certain things are going to pay off. Be very careful with this full moon with like taking any risks, gambling. The full moon in the 5th house can be like risky business, and you may find that with some of the squares to Uranus and also Mars, there are some losses. So be very careful with making risky investments or moves financially around this full moon, really probably until like the 20th on. I would just take that into consideration. Full moons traditionally in the 5th house can also be an indication of pregnancy. So I could see where, you know, there's like an opportunity for pregnancy, or there's news of pregnancy, which is positive in the 5th house, but it's conjunct Saturn. So it's like, oh, now we got to move, or, oh, now how is this going to affect my relationship with my family? Not being able to partake in certain social situations because of possible pregnancy. So it's another way that can kind of pan out for you, Libra. With the squares between your 5th house and your 8th house, you're wanting to create something more, deeper intimacy. You don't want to just date around. You're wanting to actually find love. If you're in a relationship, you're wanting to go deeper and talking about merging more and talking about things that can be a little uncomfortable for your partner, like financial planning, or talking about having children. And it's like a time where you're wanting to kind of go deeper into some of this stuff. The card that I get is the 6 of Wands. This is the homecoming card, and this is a full moon hosted by Saturn, and Saturn rules your 4th house. So where is like maybe family coming to visit? Is it possible that that's happening, where family's going to come and see you here pretty soon? We could see this for Libra risings and Scorpio risings, or some connection to like a more mother figure being welcomed home. So people who were saying, come home, it'll be fine, come visit us, or family coming to stay with you. Success and being able to celebrate success and victory when it comes to some of your own personal accomplishments, and whatever you're putting out there is being well received. Looks great. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, we have got a full moon that is being set up for you, and this is going to be taking place on August 11th, 2022, and that will be in the sign of Aquarius. So it's going to be taking place in your natal 4th house. Now, a 4th house full moon is going to highlight themes like roots, home, family, domestic stuff. Some of you guys are going to be focusing on selling houses. Some of you guys are going to be closing houses, completing houses. Some people don't even realize that they're going to have to move here soon. There can also be lots of things coming up unexpectedly within the home front. So it doesn't just have to be physically where you're living. It could be relatives that live in other places. We see that this is a moon that is conjunct Saturn, and it's square Mars and Uranus, Scorpio. Scorpio rising. There are some things that are going to be out of your control happening. And to me, it seems like it's either stemming from a partner getting really restless and wanting to move or wanting to make a change domestically within the home. Or it seems like there's some kind of family something that's like popping up, or there's like a woman coming to stay and visit at your house here pretty soon, or talking about coming at the end of August. That might cause like a little bit of strife here with the squares to your 7th house. So if you are partnered, if you are married, keep in mind that certain family and relationships won't mix well as a result of this moon. There's also this need where like the partner is pushing you, if you are in a relationship, to upend how you have always done things emotionally, or this can be pulling up or bringing up some really uncomfortable things from your childhood, and where you have a tendency to get stuck and really rigid and be like, I'm not changing my mind, I'm not opening up to that, I'm not moving. And so a partner is going to start being like really rambunctious with you, and possibly even issuing ultimatums, being like, if we don't do this, then I'm doing that. So you want to take that into consideration. You're going to see that because the sun is going through your 10th house, you're really focused on work and your goals. But like I've said for other signs, the most important placements this year is actually going to be wherever Saturn in Aquarius is and wherever the North Node in Uranus is. So Scorpio risings, as the South Node goes through your sign, there is a sense of letting go and releasing and not being super overly concerned with just what you're doing. You have to go into your 7th house because there is growth and there is a partnership that's steering you into the future. North Node conjunct Uranus. Future pleasure, future resources, future money. And it's hard because you're having to kind of give that control up, but you benefit by leaning into them a little bit more. And you also see that Saturn is sitting in the 4th house, getting you to think about your home zone. Many Scorpio risings have been telling me they're very frustrated because they don't feel like they're seeing the headway that they're wanting with their career. And I have asked them, where do you live? Do you like where you're living? What do you have to do at home? Do you want to relocate? Do you want to have a family? Like, do you need to get married? Like, what are you doing in your private life that is here to nourish and support everything you want to do in your 10th? So yes, the sun is going through your 10th house and you're busy, right? And you're working and you're going to feel very similar to the other fixed signs that you are being pulled at all different angles. I can see where you want to show up in the world, and maybe you're seeing lots of success and the outer world sees the success with the sun in the 10th house, and they also see that you're partnering with somebody. But make no mistake, internally and privately behind closed doors, it's not pleasant the next 2 months, the next 2 weeks, excuse me. It's really not very pleasant. And it seems to me that you're pushing through, trying to put on a good game face and like really trying to get everything out there. But whether it's conflict that you're having with family, roommates, or a romantic relationship and something about work and money and resources, it's going to get quite stressful. And I will go as far as saying that when the sun gets into the opposition with Saturn, there's going to be this realization through another person. So it can be a relationship, can be a business partner where somebody's like, look, something's got to give. We have to be willing to kind of meet in the middle and find a middle ground here in order to be able to kind of facilitate everything that we want to do in the Aquarius area of your life. So the full moon's in your 4th house. For everybody across the board, this full moon is going to be like a test to be like, okay, are we actually going in the direction of where Saturn wants us to go? So Scorpio, I know that you want to get stuff done at work. I know that you're really adamant about doing things your own way. I know that it's challenging sometimes to deal with change and feel like you're giving up control. But I have to tell you, if you lean into some of the things that come, and I think it's actually going to be conflict, and you realize that some of the conflict needs to be hashed out so that way you can get on the same page as some kind of partnership so you can better facilitate building the life that you need. It will support the life that you want professionally, okay? Hear me out on this because it's going to be very difficult for Scorpio risings, like super. Scorpio risings and Leo risings. I mean, everybody's going to get it, but these guys are going to be the ones that are going to feel this the strongest. And watch out for those ultimatums. I've seen when Mars Uranus squares Saturn, people separate, they move out, they divorce. Some really dramatic things happen, and family can get into the mix, and it can create some real problems here. The card that I get is the 10 of Wands. I mean, Scorpio, you probably know that you need to move. You probably know that it's time to just kind of bite the bullet and get the show on the road. This is the card that talks about movement. You have a full moon in your 4th house. Perhaps maybe you're not intending on moving, but you find out that there's like family estate stuff, or you need to help somebody else move, or you need to like tend to family. Something like that's going on, and it's a heavy burden. There's going to be a lot of responsibility, but the 10 of Wands is promising that you're wrapping it up, like you're going to be able to take it on, you can handle it. But it's okay to ask for help. And if there is a sense of being overworked, or you're talking to a partner who's feeling overworked, and there is this breakdown going on in your private life, you have to weigh out the situation and really ask yourself, is it worth just pushing through when it's creating a lot of domestic disturbances within the home? And if a partner is going through some kind of crisis and they're not working through it and they're not really communicating well with you and talking to you about what's going on, it could leave you feeling like you're in the dark and like you're working on things all by yourself. So there's a need to be able to work well with other people. I think you're going to complete it. I have a hunch though that some of you guys are going to be realizing that you need to change something about your domestic living zone, or that there's something that you need to actually clean up or fix or take care of in the house. Okay, so now we have got Sag and Sag rising. We've got a full moon happening in Aquarius. This will be on August 11th. And that's going to be taking place in your natal 3rd house. So it'll be around 19 degrees. I'm a little early here, don't worry, but it's going to be around 19 degrees. So a full moon in your 3rd house is about communications, contracts, travel, like big things that you've been working on. So if you've been working on learning a language, if you've been trying to decide if you're going to buy a car, if you've been focusing on moving, or if you're completing a move, or finally feeling like you need to get unpacked, if you need to have an agreement with someone, if you need to go on a short trip and deal more so with a sibling, that could be something that's happening here. Many Sag risings are going to find that at some point at the end of the month, I do think similar to like Scorpio and maybe even some Libras, you're going to either see like a sibling coming to visit or like reaching out to you, or family that's going to want to come and stay, or they're talking about coming to visit. And something that can kind of disrupt your routine, right? It can be aunts, uncle, cousins, siblings, parents, female neighbors, something like that also, because the moon is a woman. But the full moon in your third house with a square to the south node in your 12th, and also all of this gangbusters of planets in your 6th, that's getting out of your own way mentally, the mindset needing to be worked out. I talked about this during the Saturn square Mars for you, and I was like, yeah, something's not clicking. Like you're having anxiety, or you're having stress, or there's breathing issues, or there's some kind of like mental frustration revolving around the south node in the 12th, which is what you can't release and let go of, or what you're afraid of, and also squaring Mars north node and Uranus in your 6th. Watch out for bad habits here, you know, that can impact the lungs. Watch out for accidents, Sag. Nobody should be texting and driving, but you really need to be careful with this full moon, because the full moon is going to be in the 3rd of vehicles, and it's going to square Mars and Uranus in the 6th. Accidents. Things like I've seen clients whose pets get out and unfortunately they get hit by a car. I've seen that sometimes with these transits. I've also seen it as there being some kind of chaotic situation in the daily routine, which throws you off, and then you're in like a mental kind of frazzled state because you're having to deal with some kind of health crisis, pet crisis, something like that. This is also about changes dietary wise, and how you're making changes in how you're eating or your daily habits in general, and like the effect that it's having on your mental mindset. Full moon in the 3rd, though, you know, it is sextiling Sagittarius, so optimism is everything, even though it's kind of harder to find the optimism. You're also still experiencing some trines if you're within the first like 10 degrees of Sagittarius from Jupiter, so there is some sweetness there. Watch out for serious conversations, phone calls, things like that. Maybe siblings that are asking for money because Saturn is the ruler of your 2nd, or you're having to go back and forth and be kind of adjusting to what you're spending on a new car, or making adjustments so that way you can cover the finances for a move. Maybe you're recovering from that. There can also be like a big gadget purchase or something that you make here as well, because Saturn rules your money house, and maybe you're just like realizing like, oh, I have to buy a new phone, I have to buy a new computer, and it just doesn't feel like the best timing. It's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. I think that, you know, it's going to be really telling to also see the sun keep coming into an opposition with Saturn, because for a lot of Sagittarius, it can also be legal things. Waiting for something to settle out legally and getting an answer about something legally that will also in turn affect your health or your schedule. So if you've been in an accident and you're needing coverage, it could be something like that, and you're waiting for that determination to be made as to whether or not it's going to be actually covered. But yeah, working with herbs, grounding your energy, going on walks. I mean, just realize you're a little bit more accident prone under this moon, and that the mind can be really frazzled, and how you're communicating can seem a little bit more pessimistic and not as optimistic as you usually are, Sag. The card that I get is the Emperor. So this is about handling business. I question, or I wonder if there's something in relation to the father that's going on, or father figures, or something in relation to feeling separate from father figures, or from like mentors, or from teachers or gurus, with the sun in opposition to Saturn. Very similar, I think, to what I was also seeing with Gemini, which is like a lot of like, what do I believe in? I think Saturn in the 3rd house is just learning how to communicate and express or write more consistently, and the sun in the 9th house is like telling the bigger story. So some of you guys who are writers and creatives are like really trying to fully kind of get the story told. You're trying to get it out on paper. Your goal is to like publish something, and you're like, man, it's just hard for me to consistently do this every day because of my schedule or health things, and I really want to focus on this. But the Emperor talks about being able to master the problem at hand, to be able to come up with a solution, to be able to navigate and direct the energy as properly as you can. It can talk about needing to be bold and thinking on your feet, and really looking at the bigger picture and asserting your energy, especially when it comes to communication or planning. Okay, Sag? So we have got now Capricorn and Capricorn rising. On August 11th, 2022, you're going to have a full moon. It's going to be in Aquarius. It's going to be taking place at 19 degrees in your second house of money and resources, in opposition to the sun in the 8th, highlighting intimacy, mergers, and other people. Capricorn. Saturn rules your chart. I think a Saturn-ruled moon is really bringing the attention to your values, your resources, your spending power, what you need, and are you telling other people you need more, you're worth more, you're working on that, you're realizing your worth. This is some uncomfortable squares because we're seeing lots of bang up to planets in your 5th house, which is making you very passionate, or there's like this sudden love affair, or there's like children, or there's creative projects that are growing, and this is putting the pressure on finances. So it's like, how do I come up with money? How do I bankroll this? We want to watch out because I think a full moon conjunct Saturn can show for some Capricorn placements where you're being too risky, where you're spending too much, where you're going to the casino, going and buying lottery tickets, and having expensive dinners and romancing and having fun, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy and I'm living a lifestyle that's not really in alignment with what's in my bank account. And with the oppositions to the sun in your 8th house, it's really highlighting like what other people give you versus what you give other people, so that it can be like a little bit of like a turning point where it's like, and I need a raise, you know, and I want the benefit, and am I going to get something? Sun going through the 8th house is really highlighting that there's this profound change in the way that you express yourself. And so I think that that can be part of what kind of comes up here. You're also going to be seeing that the sun, like I said, has been in tension to the nodes. So the planets in the 5th are about creativity, children, romance. The 8th house is others and what they owe you. And the 11th house is your goals. So what you're realizing is you really want to have more fun, but you're trying to figure out a way to bankroll that, and perhaps maybe dealing with money saved versus money spent, and budgeting, and maybe looking at your bank statements and some things that you've been spending on stuff. You're realizing you can't really bankroll things all the time, especially if it's for fun or for children or for romantic partners. It can't be something that always falls on you, and this full moon can be like an awakening that's like, I need to ask people to start splitting the bill with me. I can't do it all by myself. So that's the big news. There can be big payouts and big payoffs that can be happening, large purchases. Like I said, this is being connected to Uranus in some way, and you've got Uranus conjunct Mars in the 5th. So to me, it looks like you have friends that are going out and having a good time and you want to participate, but it's like, how do I do that? So it's teaching you how to be more resourceful, but by the same token, it's also knowing when to ask for more, when to ask for some help, and things that might be about group funding, or, you know, finding ways to be able to kind of pool your money together with other people so you can cover some of these expenses. And as the sun comes into an opposition with Saturn, you might start realizing in the days after that you're like, there are certain people that I can't be with because they're takers or not givers. You're wanting to kind of find more balance, so it's not just you giving 24/7. The 9 of Wands. This is telling me that you can't do it all by yourself, and that you're feeling like it's a really heavy burden, and that it isn't just up to you, and you're on your last leg. So it might be a situation where you're like, I really need some help financially. I really need some support. I don't know how much longer I can continue doing this. And you finally get to that breaking point. 9s are right when things start to get ready to change. And this can also be talking about you feeling like you've overcome a really difficult financial situation. Maybe you have a breakthrough. I mean, for some of you guys with the sun in the 8th house and the North Node Uranus, a lot of you guys might suddenly get a lottery ticket that takes off, or you might actually get something that pays out, or you get a bonus or something that you didn't see coming. And it's kind of like saying like there's hope and optimism for the future, but like you're really exhausted and like you've come out of a very difficult period, especially if it's been in relation to your self-esteem or a financial situation, and it's coming to a close. So that's positive. Now we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Well, my friend, this is your full moon It's taking place in your sign. It'll be around 19 degrees of Aquarius. So if you have placements between, like, let's say 17 and like 21, you're really going to feel it. If it's on a personal planet, if it's on your ascendant, it's more your body, your appearance. If it's on your sun, it can deal with your career. Your moon, it's more your emotions. So a full moon in your first house, the body is being emphasized here. The moon is going to be very close in proximity to Saturn, and the moon for you rules your 6th house, which is about your daily routine and your health. So it is highlighting how your emotions, the moon, is affecting your physical body. I could see this really being about like where you know it's best for your body or your mental state to have a change in your schedule, a change in your eating habits maybe, or quite frankly, a change in your environment. Saturn in your first house is like Gandalf. It's like, thou shalt not pass. Here's my boundary, don't cross it. But as it's coming into friction with planets in your 4th house, family and home stuff seems a bit chaotic. And it's also coming into an opposition with your 7th. So it's almost like now you're getting the energy from your partners, and partners are saying, I need this from you. And your family's like, I need that. And you're like, I'm out. I'm out. I'll see you guys later. You know, I'm out to lunch. Something about this square makes me feel like the pressure that you're getting from both your relationships and your own inner world, and the chaos that can be coming from this is so you learn how to stand up for yourself and go, that's it. That's my line. Don't cross it. Oh, you've crossed it? Okay, well now this is the repercussion. And sometimes the chaos with the family, you know, creates problems in the relationship, and the partner goes, you need to choose. You know, is it them or is it me? Which is unfortunate, but that can happen with this. But because the full moon is in your sign, it's really about you having really highlighted feelings and highlighted emotions, right? Moon on the ascendant or in the 1st house can bring up some moodiness. It's very likely that that's happening. And you're feeling the stress and the separations from others, and you're afraid that if you stand your ground that other people are going to separate from you, and that it's also going to impact either your emotional private world or physically where you're living. For some Aquarius risings, I've seen things like, oh my God, my stepkid's, you know, being a mess, and they've got all these issues, and like my, you know, wife's ready to leave me because I've got this kid that's in and out of the house. I've also seen this materialize as certain people going, I can't live with family anymore. It's too much and there's too much conflict and I don't know where I'm going, but I gotta leave. These are things that happen with some of these squares. Aquarius, keep in mind, things are changing. You're releasing and letting go of jobs and old statuses in the world. You're trying to focus on finding a place that can bring you peace and serenity, and also relationships that are gonna help aid that. And right now it seems like with the full moon, it's whatever's going on with your body, whatever's going on with your emotions, you need to pay attention to that first. Everything else comes second. Be really strong with your boundaries during this full moon, and realize that a lot of this is about the goals that you're holding for yourself, and that you may have to remind yourself time and time again, when you change the rules, sometimes other people don't adjust well to that, right? They don't respond well to change. And so in a way, it's almost like you're having to put your foot down several times with people in your life so that way you can get the point across and people realize that they have to take you more so seriously, right? Thankfully, there is going to be some sextiles from Jupiter to your sign. So I see this as like you're being more communicative and optimistic about what's happening, and you're more adventurous, and maybe you don't know where you're going, but you just know you're getting to a better place, even if that means going your own way. Eight of Wands, energy shifting very quickly. So very quickly you're pivoting. You're like, I'm going, I'm leaving. This is where I'm going. This is about movement. So I'd also say just be mindful that with this full moon that's in a square to Mars, and it's also opposing the sun, people could be moving in, moving out. There can be a sense of you being like, I got to pack up and go now. There's some swiftness and some energy. If you've been feeling under the weather, not feeling so hot, this full moon can bring a lot of energy to you. And suddenly, you know, all of a sudden you're doing better and you're a little bit more action oriented. You could be working with heat or anything in regards to like sunlight or things that are going to be like stimulating circulation in the body to kind of get things moving again. So getting up, getting some sunshine, moving around can be really important and really helpful for this to help better manage and deal with the moods. But it looks like things are shifting very quickly for you. And finally, we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. So you're going to be having a full moon in Aquarius taking place on August 11th. And that'll be at 19 degrees of Aquarius. It's going to be in your 12th house. It's the hidden zone for you. Full moons in the 12th house is highlighting something that we didn't know, or maybe intuitively, energetically, we knew was there all along. Maybe we had a feeling, we saw it in a dream. Full moons in the 12th house can have us feeling kind of like out there, like we're kind of bugging out a little bit. This is going to be in conjunction to Saturn, ruler of your 11th house of goals and friendships, as well as Aquarius, ruler of the 12th house. To me, it seems like you're trying to get quiet in the midst of everything that's going on in the world. You're trying to be really selective with who you bring in to your visions for the future, to your hopes and your dreams. There can be some issues going on with friendships. Possibly some friendships just aren't working out, or timing-wise, it's hard for you to connect with some of these people. Now, this full moon is going to be in a square to all these planets in Taurus in your 3rd house, which is communication and the mind. It's also siblings. Opposition to the sun in the 6th house of health and daily routine, in a square to the south node. Something tells me there is going to be like a dream or like a feeling that you're going to have very strongly around this full moon. And this realization that like something is coming, or you're feeling something, or you're picking up on something, and you're like, do I say something? Do I not? I think that's the square. It could also be that there's some kind of chaotic something going on in your neighborhood, right? Or with a vehicle, or with a neighbor, or a phone call, or something that you hear in regards to like a sibling. Could be an aunt, uncle, cousin. But the 3rd house is like people who are closer to you. And I think it seems a little stressful, and it's kind of like you going like, oh, I had a feeling this was going to happen. Like, you know, I got to make this phone call now and have a conversation with my brother and calm him down. But you're feeling like you just want to hide out. And when this full moon hits, it's about dealing with some kind of crisis, and it does not mesh well with your schedule, kind of similar to Virgo. You're like, I don't have time for this. But a full moon in your 12th house, it's wrapping up things that are secretive. It's clearing things out. It's giving you that time to kind of rest and recuperate and take time to plan, but you're going to want to kind of go into hermit mode is the feeling that I'm getting with this. With all the squares to the 3rd house, you might feel like communication is sporadic, like you go through periods of not wanting to talk, and then you have a lot of information coming through. Be careful with sleeping, especially if you're really tired. Sleeping while, trying to drive or pushing trips when you're tired is not good during this full moon, because you can see that there can be actual accidents or miscommunications. If we're sleepy and we're not paying attention to what we're doing or what we're working on, we can make mistakes, and there can be things that we don't see accurately, which then can create some either bigger hiccups or some actual delays here, okay? But I think that a full moon in the 12th house is illuminating something, and that conjunction to Saturn is maybe where a friend has been, what they've been going through, or if you've been taking space in a friendship, it's like, this is what I've been dealing with, you know? Or I had a dream about you, are you okay? Things like that might happen because the 12th house is very dreamy and kind of like whimsical. And your dreams may be prompting whether or not you're reaching out and communicating and speaking to someone. The card that I get is the King of Cups. So this can be you, honestly, because this can be a water sign, so a Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. If it's not you, it's maybe a connection that you're having to another water sign and kind of like feeling like, okay, do I reach out to them? Like, do they want to talk to me? Am I getting my signals crossed? Like, what's going on here? This can be also about you reaching a level of emotional maturity and kind of knowing when to reach and when not to reach, when to say something and when to wait. And really feeling good. You're in a good emotional state. So it's like, no, I'm good. If they're going through it, you know what? It can't disrupt my peace. Saturn in the 12th. I'll talk to them if they're willing to be calm and collected, but otherwise, you know, I got to do my thing. Being compassionate, making decisions with the heart, taking the heart into consideration, but being realistic. So not allowing yourself to go totally like bonkers and getting super emotional, trying to have a conversation, and then you just end up like ugly crying, right? No, this is a sense of being grounded and being able to communicate and getting the point across, being understanding and sympathetic, but also not letting someone walk all over you. Channel and work with the King of Cups. You may also find that a king comes in to kind of help you communicate, express ideas. It could be a writing partner. It could be somebody that you're learning with that's going to help you through this process. Full moons are a time where you really need rest and recuperation when it's in your 12th house. You need some privacy. So if you're feeling like you need to take a day or two just to yourself to kind of recuperate, maybe journal, work through some of the things that are coming up for you, it would be advised. All right, guys. Well, good luck. Godspeed. Definitely this is going to be quite an intense one for many people, but I'm also optimistic that these energies have to play out in order for us to get on the path. And if this is what needs to shake things up right now, so it's a little bit easier to adapt down the road, so be it. Let me know, where is this taking place in your chart? So it's going to be 19 degrees of Aquarius, that full moon on August 11th. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how you're feeling with these energies. Do you have planets in the fixed signs? Oh my gosh, guys, the full moon's right on my north node and it's like square all these planets. So I'm like, I hope I'm here next week. Whatever is like playing out, obviously it's to kind of help everybody get on the path of where it is that we need to go. So try to keep that into consideration. Have appreciation. I know it can be hard in the midst of some of this stuff, that the universe is clearing things for us. It is making it possible for us to blast through things that have been long-standing issues in our life for some time. Stay grounded, focus on your dreams, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.